Welcome to another episode. Today we're tackling an important but often misunderstood area, how mineral exploitation plays a significant role in conflict, specifically in the Congo. Did you know that natural resources can actually turn ideological conflicts into economic battles?
That's right. It might surprise many listeners that the motivation behind some interventions by countries like Uganda and Rwanda in the late 1990s was less about security and more about accessing valuable minerals.
Exactly. We often hear terms like intervention tied to military conflicts. In this case, Uganda's intervention was significantly motivated by opportunities for illicit mineral trafficking.
Right, and there's more to it. Rwanda exploited mineral resources in eastern Congo under the pretense of military occupation. It shows a complex web of motives behind what might seem like straightforward military actions.
As we look at the aftermath of the 2002 peace agreements, it's fascinating to note that the official withdrawal of Rwandan and Ugandan armies correlated with a decrease in direct mineral exploitation by these state actors.
This brings up a crucial point about local dynamics. Rebel groups in the East turn to mineral exploitation as their primary revenue source, perpetuating conflict at grassroots levels. It's almost a cycle that feeds itself.
Absolutely. The war in Congo illustrates how numerous factors contribute to prolonged conflict. Instead of looking at a single cause, scholars like Williams suggest we examine the complete recipe of variables that sustain these conflicts.
You mentioned a recipe. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. The 1990s set the stage for ideological and political preconditions that made foreign intervention in the Congo seem thinkable. The crisis of legitimacy in Mobutu's regime left a vacuum that encouraged various rebel movements to rise up.
So this collapse of state legitimacy created new power dynamics. How does that tie into the overall theme of resource exploitation?
Great question. That vacuum attracted not only rebel groups, but also regional players who saw an opportunity to exert influence, often through the very resources that were funding these violent factions. It creates a perpetual cycle of instability.
Speaking of cycles, when we talk about war death tolls, how do we differentiate between direct deaths and indirect ones?
Good point. Most war-related fatalities in the Congo arise from indirect situations. As civilians flee conflict zones, they become refugees or internally displaced persons. This makes them vulnerable to disease, hunger, and crime, leading to what we call excess deaths.
It's alarming to think that the majority of deaths aren't due to battlefield combat, but these indirect causes that stem from being displaced.
And let's not forget, disease outbreaks and crowded displacement camps intensify due to inadequate sanitation and a lack of resources. The spiral of vulnerability compounds as nutritional deficiencies put these populations at even greater risk.
Now, shifting to the concept of state failure, how does this relate to the conflicts we've been discussing?
State failure is a nuanced concept and encompasses more than just a simple breakdown of authority. It includes loss of legitimate violence, administrative collapse, and general inability to provide basic public goods.
So in the context of the Congo, these failures create power vacuums that not only draw in regional players, but also empower local armed groups to contest for control over resources.
You're spot on. The interplay between local, regional, and international actors creates a complicated environment where the fabric of state authority is constantly under threat. It's a complex relationship.
There's also the role of guarantor dynamics. Could you break that down?
Absolutely. An implicit guarantor like France during the Cold War provided military and economic support to protect certain regimes. This relationship illustrates how foreign powers influence the sovereignty of African states.
It's fascinating how these dynamics shape state behavior and security choices. One might argue that this creates dependencies that inhibit true autonomy.
An important insight. Now, what do we mean when we refer to ungoverned spaces in Africa?
Generally, ungoverned spaces imply territories without recognized governance. However, that's a misleading term because local entities often fill those gaps, even if they don't have official state recognition.
Exactly. Tribal authorities or rebel groups may provide some form of governance that isn't acknowledged by international law, complicating intervention efforts.
That complexity challenges common notions of sovereignty and the legitimacy of state authority. It really pushes us to rethink how we approach interventions.
Now let's shift gears to the African Peace and Security Architecture, or APSA. What does it aim to accomplish?
APSA represents a commitment to resolving conflicts on the continent, with components such as early warning systems, mediation efforts, and peace support operations. However, its effectiveness is hampered by resource constraints and uneven member state cooperation.
That's a critical point. Even with a strong framework, the ability to act decisively is often limited. Can you share an example of APSA in action?
Certainly, the intervention in the Comoros is a notable case where the African Union authorized member states to help reintegrate the island of Anjouan. Senegal, Sudan, and Tanzania sent troops successfully, demonstrating regional agency in conflict management.
That's a prime example of African agency, highlighting how regional actors can take the lead in preserving territorial integrity.
Shifting slightly, let's now touch on the Sudanese civil war. What dynamics play a role in understanding that conflict?
The Second Sudanese Civil War had profound regional implications. It even affected education, as many students in Uganda were fighters wounded in the conflict, emphasizing how interconnected these regional struggles are.
And we can't overlook the strategic creation of proxy forces like the Allied Democratic Forces by Sudanese intelligence, which targeted Uganda. This highlights how regional players may use neighboring territories for indirect warfare.
Yes, the complexities of these conflicts blur the lines between national sovereignty and external influence, posing questions about state responsibility.
And that leads us right into our discussion about Cabinda. Geographically, why is it significant?
Cabinda is an Angolan enclave that's physically separated from Angola's main territory by the Democratic Republic of Congo. This geographic puzzle is critical because it houses significant oil reserves, attracting continuous efforts to assert control.
This has led to an ongoing liberation movement since the 1960s, highlighting how colonial history continues to have ramifications today.
Which brings us to those timeless words of wisdom in international relations. There are no permanent allies, only permanent interests.
Such a powerful aphorism. It perfectly encapsulates the fluid nature of alliances, especially in African international relations, where alliances shift based on evolving national interests.
As we wrap up today's discussion, it's clear that understanding the relationships between resource exploitation, state dynamics, and regional politics in Africa requires a multifaceted approach.
Indeed, from the importance of local governance to the roles of international actors, all these elements influence the complex tapestry of conflict and resolution across the continent.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you gained insights into the intricate world of African international relations and the challenges posed by humanitarian intervention.
Until next time, keep questioning and exploring. The world needs informed citizens ready to engage with complex issues.